Breaking news! An important decision is being made within the Denver Broncos organization right now, one that could quietly shape the franchise's future for the next 4 years. 3 players, 3 very different situations, and a front office that needs to decide who gets paid before the market explodes. The question is this: if the Broncos get this decision wrong, they could end up overpaying, losing a rising star, or creating unnecessary pressure for the next offseason. But if they get it right, they could look like absolute geniuses securing key players before the rest of the league redefines prices. But before we get into the details, I need to ask one thing. Have you clicked the like button yet? Because if you're a true Denver Broncos fan and believe this team is building something special, now's the time to show it. Click the like button right now. And I want to see this in the comments. Go Broncos! In 2026, we'll be back stronger. Now, let's analyze this, because what's happening with these 3 contracts can tell us exactly how this organization sees its future. According to the discussion featured on Locked on Broncos, the Broncos are once again facing critical extension decisions just like they did before last season when they secured key pieces ahead of time. This front office has shown a pattern: identify ascending talent early, extend them before they hit peak market value, and protect long-term flexibility. Let's start with Riley Moss. He's one of the most polarizing players among Broncos fans. Some see the physicality, the speed, the toughness and run support. Others focus on the penalties and occasional deep ball lapses. The truth? Both sides have valid points. Moss brings legitimate starting caliber traits opposite the team's top corner. He added muscle last offseason, improved his tackling presence, and showed growth late in the year by reducing those costly penalties. What makes this interesting is timing. Moss is entering a contract year. The conversation in the file makes it clear that he could be an in-season extension candidate, similar to how other players have been handled in the past. The Broncos may want to see the first half of the season before committing long-term. That means evaluating whether the technique issues are truly corrected and whether he can consistently make plays on the ball. The key factor here is projection. If the Broncos believe Moss is a long-term starter, extending him during the season prevents free agency risk and potentially saves cap space. If they hesitate, the price could rise, or worse, they risk losing control of the situation. Now let's talk about Marvin Mims Jr., and this might be the most fascinating case of the 3. There's a strong argument that the Broncos need to extend him before his value explodes. Mims has proven he's one of the most dynamic players on the roster. Every time he touches the ball, something big can happen. He's delivered clutch catches in critical moments and has all-pro returnability, which dramatically increases his overall value. The estimated market comparisons discussed show 2 very different valuation paths. One projection suggests a deal around $6.5 million per year based on certain comparable receivers. But another comparison, using vertical threat and return specialist profiles, could push that number significantly higher depending on how the market evolves. And here's the real question: are the Broncos fully maximizing him? The discussion suggests that when Mims is featured, he delivers explosive and clutch plays. That's not speculation, that's based on actual performance trends highlighted in the file. If the team expands his role and he breaks out statistically, waiting could cost millions more per year. Finally, Brendan Jones. This one feels like the cleanest decision of the 3. Jones has been described as a valuable asset in the secondary, fitting extremely well within the defensive structure. He earned performance escalators in his current contract and is due for a new deal. Safeties typically don't break the bank compared to other defensive positions, which makes this extension even more logical. When healthy, Jones has shown consistency, toughness, and strong synergy within the defensive backfield. The financial structure makes sense, the role makes sense, and the impact on the cap would likely be manageable compared to losing stability at safety. And here's where this entire situation becomes even more strategic for the Denver Broncos, because we're not just talking about talent, we're talking about timing, leverage, and long-term roster construction. Let's go back to Riley Moss for a second. If the Broncos wait too long and he puts together a clean first half of the season, fewer penalties, more pass breakups, maybe even a couple of interceptions, his negotiating power increases immediately. That's the risk of the in-season evaluation strategy discussed earlier. If he proves he can consistently handle being targeted opposite the team's top corner, you're suddenly negotiating from a weaker position. But if you extend him early and he regresses, that's the gamble. What makes this even more interesting is how the front office views defensive back depth. The conversation in the file highlights how important proper assessment of the cornerback room is before making long-term commitments. You don't just extend a player in isolation, you're projecting the entire unit for 2026 and beyond. Now shift to Marvin Mims Jr., because this one could define whether the Broncos are proactive or reactive. The analysis clearly emphasizes that when Mims is involved, explosive plays follow. And that's not emotional fan optimism, it's pattern recognition. Clutch catches, vertical threat, all-pro return production. That combination is rare. Here's the danger in waiting. If the Broncos expand his offensive role this year and he posts a breakout season, that projected market comparison jumps instantly. We already saw 2 possible valuation paths mentioned, one modest, one much higher depending on comparable players. If he approaches top-tier vertical threat production, you're not negotiating in the mid-tier range anymore. And here's something else to think about. The file discussion flips the narrative by suggesting it's not just a make or break year for Mims, it's a defining year for the Broncos' usage of him. If they don't maximize his role and he remains underutilized, that becomes a philosophical question about offensive identity, not just contract value. Now let's circle back to Brandon Jones, because this one feels almost like the stabilizer in this entire conversation. The file makes it clear that Jones proved his value within the defensive structure and earned escalators through snap count performance. That's not hype, that's contractual evidence of impact. He hit the 70% snap threshold and triggered bonuses. That tells you the coaching staff trusted him. And when you combine that with the broader discussion about safety market value not typically crippling your salary cap, it becomes logical. Extending Jones could be the cleanest, lowest risk move of the three. So here's the bigger picture. The Broncos have shown a pattern of getting ahead of market spikes. They've done it before. That philosophy is part of why this roster has flexibility right now. If they repeat that strategy with Moss, Mims, and Jones, they could lock in core contributors before the league resets the price at their positions. But here's the tension. Because here's the reality, Broncos country, this isn't just about contracts. It's about identity. It's about whether this front office believes the foundation of this team is built on defensive consistency, offensive explosiveness, or long-term developmental upside. Every extension sends a message. Every dollar committed tells us who they believe will define the next era of Denver Broncos football. If they prioritize Riley Moss, they're betting on growth and continuity in the secondary. If Marvin Mims Jr. is the first domino to fall, that signals a commitment to unlocking explosive playmaking and investing in dynamic offense. And if Brandon Jones gets secured early, it tells you they value defensive stability and locker room reliability above all else. This is why timing matters so much. Extend too early, and you assume risk. Wait too long, and you lose leverage. That delicate balance is what separates average front offices from elite ones. And based on how this organization has operated recently, they clearly prefer to stay ahead of the curve rather than chase the market. Now let's close this up the right way, because this isn't just about contracts, it's about identity. If the Broncos extend Riley Moss first, they're sending a clear message. We believe in our defensive structure, we believe in continuity, and we're willing to invest in internal development. Moss represents growth. He represents projection. He represents betting on a player who has shown flashes and trusting that refinement will turn those flashes into consistency. That move would tell you the organization values stability at corner and wants to lock in the secondary before it becomes a financial problem. If they prioritize Marvin Mims Jr., that signals something completely different. That would say, we are leaning into explosiveness. We are leaning into speed. We are leaning into offensive evolution. Mims isn't just a return specialist, he's a game breaker waiting to be fully unleashed. And if the Broncos truly believe his role is about to expand, extending him before a statistical breakout would be a power move. It would be the kind of forward-thinking decision that saves millions later and builds chemistry for years. But if Brandon Jones is the first domino to fall, that's a statement about defensive backbone. That's a message that says, reliability matters, leadership matters, fit within the scheme matters. Jones has already proven he can execute within the system. There's less projection involved. It's about rewarding consistency and protecting the middle of your defense with someone you trust. Here's what makes this so fascinating. These three players represent three